Imagine you own like a massive physical manufacturing plant, something like a high-end automobile factory.
Right. Heavy machinery everywhere, massive overhead.
Exactly. Every single day, the assembly line fires up, the robotic arms spin into action, and 95% of the cars roll off the line, fall directly onto the concrete floor, and just shatter into a million pieces.
I mean, that's an absolute catastrophe, a complete operational disaster.
You would immediately shut down the factory, you'd fire the floor managers on the spot. But you know what you absolutely would not do?
Hire a consultant.
Right. You wouldn't hire a massive team of management consultants to spend, 6 months creating a beautifully formatted 100-page PowerPoint presentation about the shattered glass on your floor.
And yet, if you look closely at the enterprise technology space today, that is the exact scenario playing out across the Fortune 500 with their artificial intelligence budgets right now.
Welcome to the inaugural Borion AI Deep Dive. Today we are opening up a massive stack of highly revealing source materials from a newly launched firm called Borion AI. And we are framing this specific broadcast not just as a casual chat, but as the definitive market launch and strategic manifesto of the firm.
The stakes here really cannot be overstated. We aren't talking about a vendor peddling a flashy new dashboard or some lightweight, wrapper tool. We are examining a fundamental shift in how the largest corporations on Earth procure, build, and deploy machine learning.
The mission of today's deep dive is to decode whether Borion AI actually possesses the structural methodology to completely dismantle the multi-billion-dollar traditional enterprise AI consulting model. By the end of this conversation, you will understand exactly why so many of your own AI projects fail, and how to spot the crucial difference between an expensive PowerPoint deck and actual deployable software. Okay, let's unpack this, because the scale of the failure in the industry right now is genuinely staggering.
It's chilling when you look at the raw numbers in this launch framework. Basically, 95% of enterprise AI pilots never reach production. They just die in the testing phase.
Wow, 95%.
Yeah, and a full 56% of corporate CEOs report getting a return on their AI investments of exactly zero.
Just the smoking crater where the IT budget used to be. And that budget is currently averaging, what, $124 million a year for enterprise AI?
Yep, 124 million.
How is the failure rate that universally terrible? Is the technology really just that hard to build?
Well, the problem isn't necessarily the building, it's the environment and the architecture. I mean, if your IT department's AI strategy still revolves around granting API access to public LLMs or teaching your teams prompt engineering, you are building a house of cards.
Oh, completely. As an engineer, I find the whole prompt whispering trend exhausting. It's a dead end. The industry right now is obsessed with these wrapper apps, which is basically just slapping a corporate logo onto ChatGPT's existing interface.
Right, which completely ignores the immediate corporate anxiety in the enterprise space. I'm talking about security, compliance, and integration.
Exactly. Building a wrapper app in a local, sanitized sandbox environment is incredibly easy. It's an artificial ecosystem. So it's like rehearsing a complex theatrical play in your quiet living room. You control the lighting, there's no audience, you know all the lines.
That's a perfect analogy. You have a clean, static spreadsheet, zero server latency, no concurrent users overwhelming the system.
But deploying that model to a live production server, that's taking the exact same play to a live stage where the audience is actively throwing tomatoes at you, the power keeps cutting out, and your supporting actors suddenly start speaking a different language.
So what happens mechanically to the AI when it hits that live stage?
It suffers from data drift. You train a predictive model on a massive set of historical data, works perfectly in the sandbox. Then you deploy it to the real world. Over the next 3 weeks, consumer buying behavior shifts, just slightly due to a market event.
Right, the real world doesn't stand still.
Exactly. Suddenly, the live data the model is trying to process looks nothing like its historical training data. The statistical patterns misalign, and the model completely breaks down. The sandbox is a controlled illusion, but live production is a chaotic, living organism.
And when things get chaotic and these sandbox systems break, enterprise executives panic. And who do they call? The legacy consulting firms, which, if we look at Borion's manifesto, are the actual villains of this story.
Yeah, let's talk about the legacy consulting trap, because they try to sell a 2-year middleware upgrade just to connect a basic database to a model.
Oh, having spent years analyzing global enterprise procurement from the inside, I find their teardown of this dynamic so accurate. Borion argues that this 95% failure rate isn't just technical incompetence. It is a structural inevitability. Legacy advisory firms are built to bill, not built to ship.
Unpack build to bill for me. Because to someone outside the consulting world, it just looks like these firms are biting off more than they can chew technologically.
Well, the technical failure is just a symptom of their underlying financial model. Traditional consulting operates on a massive pyramid structure. You have a handful of highly paid partners at the very top who sell the engagement, and a massive wide base of junior associates at the bottom.
Right. Kids fresh out of college, usually.
Exactly. The firm makes its profit by billing out those junior associates at incredibly high hourly rates, month after agonizing month. Their entire revenue model relies on utilization rates.
Wait, if they only make money by logging continuous hours over a long period, they are financially incentivized to delay the project.
We call it the economics of delay. If a traditional consulting firm somehow miraculously built a perfectly functional production-ready AI system in 8 weeks and handed the client the keys, that would be viewed internally as a commercially failed engagement.
Are you serious? A failure?
Yes. The partner would actually be reprimanded for not expanding the scope into a massive 3-year enterprise-wide digital transformation journey. Speed actively cuts off their own billable hours.
That explains the death by PowerPoint. Since their core competency isn't writing production-grade, fault-tolerant code, they have to manufacture administrative complexity to justify their presence.
You get endless bi-weekly stakeholder alignment syncs.
Right, and these beautiful 150-page architecture decks detailing phase 4 of a roadmap that never actually comes.
But hold on, I have to back here. If these legacy firms have a known 95% failure rate, why on earth do highly intelligent Fortune 500 executives keep giving them $124 million budgets?
Career insurance. It's a psychological reality in corporate America. There's an old industry saying nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. If a CIO hires a scrappy, highly competent boutique firm and the AI deployment fails, the CIO gets fired for taking a risk.
Ah, I see.
But if they hire the biggest, most expensive, most famous global consulting brand and the project fails, the CIO can stand in front of the board of directors and say, look, I hired the absolute gold standard. The technology just isn't ready yet. They're buying a massive safety blanket so they can blame the technology, not their hiring choice.
Exactly, which is why the cycle continues. But the Borion thesis is that the patience of corporate boards is finally running out, that budget is starting to hurt, and that safety blanket is turning into a straitjacket.
Which is the exact market friction Borion AI is exploiting. They are pivoting aggressively away from built to bill to a methodology fundamentally designed to be built to ship. And that starts with throwing out these custom, brittle APIs for every single use case.
Right, because if you're building custom APIs every time, you're just adding to the delay.
Exactly. Which is why Borion introduces the Model Context Protocol, or MCP, as the new standard for AI plumbing. It standardizes how AI safely reads and writes to legacy tech stacks. It's like standardizing electrical outlets in a house instead of hardwiring every single lamp into the walls.
So it bypasses the need for that 2-year middleware upgrade that consultants always try to sell?
Precisely. And this ties directly into why prompt engineering is a complete dead end. Prompt engineering requires a human to constantly sit there and drive the prompt. It's not automation, it's just a really smart typewriter.
So what replaces it? If you aren't prompting the AI, what is it doing?
You move to the agent core architecture. These are autonomous multi-agent systems that communicate with each other via secure protocols like MCP.
Okay, give me a concrete example. How does this look in a real enterprise?
Let's use a corporate supply chain analogy. Instead of a manager manually asking a chatbot, hey, what is our inventory looking like? You design a zero-prompt workflow.
So the machines are talking to each other.
Continuously. Agent A constantly monitors the database via an API. When it flags a material shortage, it autonomously talks to Agent B, an AI that specializes in logistics, to find the best shipping routes and freight costs.
Okay, so it finds the route. Then what?
Then Agent B talks to Agent C in the finance department to automatically trigger a secure purchase order. The entire workflow happens machine to machine, completely autonomously.
I can see how that drives incredible efficiency, but honestly, that creates massive corporate anxiety. Enterprise IT departments must be absolutely terrified of rogue autonomous code. Like, what about AI hallucinations causing a compliance disaster or placing an accidental $10 million order?
That fear is entirely justified. And the mathematical solution is that you don't block the technology, you build hard constraints into the orchestration engine.
Yeah.
You never use large language models to do complex math or enforce corporate rules.
Because LLMs are just text prediction engines, right?
Exactly. If you ask an LLM to forecast sales or calculate freight costs, it will inevitably hallucinate numbers because it doesn't actually understand math. That brings us to Borion's second engineering primitive, the predict engine.
So how does the predict engine solve the hallucination problem?
It uses hardcore statistical science, things like gradient boosting, Bayesian networks, and deterministic mixed integer programming solvers.
Okay, you're speaking engineer now. Break that down for me.
Basically, these are mathematical models used for proactive foresight. You can train the entire system using strict math that an LLM literally cannot override. You build hard guardrails so the autonomous agents can only operate within strict corporate rules.
Got it. But none of those advanced agents work if the foundation they are standing on is rotting, which leads to the classic enterprise excuse I hear all the time. Our data is too messy. It's too siloed or too broken to support advanced AI. So we need a 3-year data lake cleansing project first.
Oh, 3-year data lake cleansing project. I hate this one.
Right. It's a legacy consulting myth explicitly designed to bill endless hours. They tell the board, hey, you can't do AI until your data is perfectly clean. See them in 36 months.
It's such a scam. And Borion completely attacks this with their third primitive, the data forge layer. Because you don't need a pristine data lake. You just need targeted, automated, cloud-native ETL pipelines built strictly around narrow, high-value workflows.
You don't boil the data ocean.
Never boil the ocean. You build targeted pipelines that clean and structure the exact data required for a specific agent to execute its specific job today. If Agent Core is your state-of-the-art robotic assembly line, Data Forge is the structural concrete foundation poured underneath it.
And if a company still insists they need a massive company-wide data overhaul first,
Borion just walks away from the deal. They refuse to play the built-to-build game. They hunt for a narrow workflow where the data does exist today, solve it in 90 days, prove the ROI, and compound the momentum.
the 90-day sprint is fascinating. Weeks 1 and 2 are purely discovery. Weeks 4 through 6 are for building the prototype on the client's actual data, and weeks 9 through 12 are for live production deployment.
And what stands out is the structural personnel difference that makes a timeline like that possible. They operate on a strict rule of 0 handoffs.
Right. No bloated pyramids, no separate account management teams who sell the work and then vanish.
Yes, exactly. The senior engineer who sits in the boardroom to scope the project in week 1 is the exact same engineer writing the code in week 5 and the exact same engineer deploying the server in week 11.
The reduction in loss context is massive. When you separate the seller from the builder, requirements get lost in translation. Borion eliminates that translation layer entirely. But here is where it gets highly disruptive for the legacy firms. Borion relies on intense financial risk share. They operate on milestone-based contingent payments.
Meaning they don't invoice for hours logged.
No, they invoice exclusively for outcomes. They don't get paid their full fee until the AI is live in the production environment and actively generating value. If data drift happens, or if latency breaks the model on day 2, Borion eats the cost of fixing it.
Which traditional firms literally cannot afford to do because of their massive overhead.
Okay.
All right, so we have the theory, the commercial model, and the technical primitives. But the enterprise market is drowning in theory. Let's look at the actual receipts.
The case studies in this stack are incredible because these are live running systems. Let's start with the consumer packaged goods sector. Borion built an assortment optimization system that generated $10 million in pure profit in just 6 months.
$10 million in 6 months. How did they manage that mathematically?
They used an MIP solver, which you mentioned earlier, across 300,000 different SKU to store combinations. An MIP solver handles whole number constraints. Like, on a retail shelf, you can't put half a bottle of soda. You either place the whole bottle or you don't.
Right.
The algorithm calculates the absolute most profitable combination of items in finite shelf spaces, but it also factors in something called demand transfer.
Demand transfer, meaning if a customer walks in wanting cherry soda and you only stock grape, the system calculates the probability that they'll settle for the grape versus just walking out of the store.
That is exactly it. The math understands customer substitution behavior. They replaced flawed human intuition with strict, auditable optimization. That is undeniable, measurable return on investment.
Let's pivot to the healthcare sector, because there, the stakes aren't just soda sales. It's patient outcomes and malpractice liability. Borion built a pre-visit clinical summarization agent. The problem is that doctors simply don't have time to read an 8-page patient chart before a 15-minute appointment.
So they deployed an AI to summarize the chart. But in healthcare, how do you prevent the AI from hallucinating a medical fact, Like a hallucinated allergy could be fatal.
This is where their engineering is incredibly strict.
Yeah.
They achieve sub-3-second latency using RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, but crucially, they paired it with citation traceback.
How does that look to the doctor using it?
The AI acts like a highly disciplined librarian. Borion hard-coded a constraint where the model is literally not allowed to synthesize a medical fact without providing a direct hyperlink back to the exact sentence in the original electronic health record.
Wow, so there are no black boxes.
None. The doctor can verify the logic instantly by clicking the link. The liability mitigation there is brilliant. It actively shields the hospital network from malpractice risk.
And the third case study is pure infrastructure, MLOps. They upgraded a company from level 0, where data scientists were manually configuring servers and acting as glorified IT support, to level 1.
Unblocking the scientist.
Right.
They built automated CI/CD pipelines. So now, when a scientist finishes a predictive model, they push a button, the system automatically runs hundreds of tests and deploys it safely to the live server.
They even added cost-aware cloud compute scheduling, so expensive servers only spin up when heavy math is actually happening. They turned a blocked team of miserable scientists into a unit shipping new AI models weekly.
What's fascinating to me here is the sheer technical diversity. You have Bayesian math for retail shelves, IPPay anti-client natural language processing for hospitals, and hardcore cloud infrastructure automation. Pulling that off requires a very specific organizational DNA.
Absolutely. Looking at their leadership framework, it comes down to combining two highly distinct organizational forces. On one side, you have the technical brain.
Their chief scientist.
Exactly. This is an elite applied science deployer who has personally shipped over 20 end-to-end live enterprise AI systems for global giants. And the most telling detail, this executive still manually reads server logs and writes code.
But a brilliant mathematical coder is completely useless if they don't have commercial distribution. They'd just be a boutique research shop.
Which brings in the second force, the commercial engine, their chief strategy officer. This is an operator who previously scaled a global professional services firm to 47 countries, managed 7,500 employees, and hit $1 billion in monthly revenue.
$1 billion a month.
Yes. And they did it operating on a philosophy of zero-based budget discipline, where every single dollar spent must be mathematically justified by new value created.
This combination solves the exact structural divide that causes the 95% failure rate. Pure tech startups have brilliant coders, but can't navigate a 9-month Fortune 500 procurement cycle. Legacy consulting firms can charm the board of directors, but are ultimately selling technical vaporware.
Right. Borion possesses both the rigorous science to keep the code alive and the massive corporate scaling experience to deploy it safely.
But wait, I have to ask the obvious question. If this firm relies on zero handoffs, where the elite engineer scoping the work is the person deploying the code, doesn't this leadership model become a massive bottleneck? How do you scale a firm when your standard is that ruthlessly high?
This is the existential challenge for any disruption firm. If you can't scale the talent, you remain a boutique shop forever. But the answer is buried in their energy sector case study. Borion didn't just deploy a model for that energy client, they built a 32-course internal data science academy.
Oh, so they mathematically trained over 400 existing scientists at the client site.
Yes. By standardizing a brutal, rigorous curriculum, they productize the elite knowledge of their leadership. They scale by minting their own deployers, ensuring that every junior engineer thinks and codes like the chief scientist.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together for the grand summary. The core architectural choice facing modern IT departments is crystal clear.
Right. You can either let traditional legacy vendors lock you into multi-year advisory retainers to build beautiful PowerPoint roadmaps of what AI might look like in 3 years, or you can adopt modern engineering primitives, Agent Core, Predict Engine, Data Forge, and ship functional, secure software to a live production server in 60 to 90 days.
The ethos is remarkably simple AI that ships. Speed isn't an operational risk, it is an architectural discipline. Success is measured strictly by code running live under immense user traffic, integrating smoothly with legacy systems, and degrading gracefully when things inevitably break.
And to you, the listener, you need to examine your own organization's technology budget right now. Are you stuck in endless pilot loops? Are you paying massive retainer fees to legacy consultants who are billing you for the illusion of progress?
I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. Base intelligence, the massive foundation models built by OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google, is rapidly commoditizing. You can now access world-class artificial intelligence via an API for fractions of a cent.
Which means simply having an AI model is no longer a competitive advantage.
Exactly. Everyone has the intelligence. If the base intelligence is commoditized, your deployment speed is the only remaining moat. So as speed becomes the only differentiator, are we witnessing an extinction-level event for traditional billable hour tech consulting? Will they crumble under the weight of built-to-ship upstarts? The next time a legacy vendor hands you a 150-page strategy deck, ask yourself, are you looking at a blueprint for a structural bridge that can handle live traffic? Or are you just looking at a very expensive painting of a river that you still can't cross?